We grow up in a culture that teaches us, almost from childhood, that to love is to give everything, that being a good person means putting others first, that sacrifice is a virtue. And so, many of us grow up believing that to have peace, healthy relationships, or acceptance, we must surrender, endure, and give more than we have. But what if I told you that true inner peace doesn't come from sacrifice, but from boundaries? Let's talk about that today, about how you build peace from within, not from effort directed outward, and why setting boundaries isn't selfish, but a deep act of self-love. The word sacrifice comes from the Latin sacrificium, meaning sacred act. But in today's world, it's become twisted. Now, many believe that the more they sacrifice in work, relationships, or family, the more they're worth, that there's something noble in forgetting yourself for the sake of others. And so they end up exhausted, empty, resentful, and guilty for not being able to give more. Has that ever happened to you? Have you ever given everything for someone who never even asked, but secretly hoped they'd notice? Have you agreed to things you didn't want just to keep the peace, or kept quiet about how you truly felt, just to avoid losing someone's affection? That's not love. That's fear disguised as devotion, disconnection disguised as virtue, self-abandonment disguised as peace. Because true inner peace doesn't leave you drained, it fills you. It doesn't break you, it organizes you. It doesn't ask you to disappear, it invites you to take your rightful place. Boundaries aren't walls that keep others out, they're clear lines that define who you are. They're a way of saying, this is okay, and this is not, with respect, but also with firmness. Boundaries aren't punishments, they're acts of clarity, invisible lines that protect your energy, your emotional well-being, your dignity. And here's the key. You don't set boundaries to control others. You set them to protect your peace. Many people fear setting boundaries because they think they'll appear cold, harsh, selfish. But it's quite the opposite. True selfishness is expecting others to meet your needs while you stay silent. True love is being so clear with yourself that you don't need to manipulate, please, or maintain relationships that drain you. So why is it so hard to set boundaries? Because for many of us, sacrifice has become part of our identity. We were taught that being good meant always saying yes, that it was better to settle than to speak up, that it was more valuable to endure than to walk away. So whenever we try to say, I can't, this doesn't feel right, or I need something else, guilt creeps in, the fear of being rejected, the fear of not being loved, the fear of being seen as selfish. It's not your fault. That's a wound born in childhood, when you learned that if you behaved, didn't make trouble, pleased others, you'd be loved, that if you were too much yourself, there were consequences. So you started to associate love with giving up your truth, approval with silence, peace with suppression. And now, as an adult, you're tired, but you still believe that giving more is the only way to be accepted, that saying no makes you a bad person, that taking care of yourself is ungrateful. But here's the truth. Inner peace doesn't come from erasing your needs, it comes from honoring them. People often think that setting boundaries is a threat to relationships. And yes, sometimes it changes things. Some people will leave. But that's not a loss. It's a revelation. Because relationships that don't respect your limits also don't respect your soul. When you start to set boundaries, the true nature of your relationships is revealed. Those who get angry because they can no longer take advantage never truly loved you. Those who drift away because you've stopped sacrificing yourself weren't companions. They were weights. Yes, it can hurt, but eventually it brings relief. When you learn to stand by your boundaries, you begin to attract people who don't need you to betray yourself to stay, people who listen, who see all of you, who celebrate your clarity because they understand that love isn't fusion, it's coexistence. And that is freedom. You don't need to scream to set boundaries. You just need to stand by them. You don't have to argue, explain, or beg. A simple sentence, calm and firm, is enough. Thank you, but no, that doesn't feel right for me. I won't be able to do that. I'd prefer not to talk about that. I'm not available for this. The other person might not like it. They might not understand, and that's okay. You don't set boundaries to make others comfortable. You set them so you can be at peace. And if someone can't accept them, they're showing you something important, that your well-being matters less to them than their convenience. And that, too, is valuable information. When you start living with your own boundaries, something shifts inside. You're no longer at war with yourself. You stop punishing yourself for needing rest, silence, or space. You stop looking for approval because you've finally given yourself the one approval that matters, your own. Inner peace doesn't come because everything around you is perfect. It comes from knowing deep down that you're protecting yourself, that you're choosing yourself, that you're building a life where you don't need to disappear to belong. And then the body feels it. You breathe differently. You sleep differently. You move differently because you're no longer carrying what isn't yours. You become lighter, more grounded, more you. Sometimes setting boundaries will leave you alone. That's true, because you no longer fit in places where you were only valued for what you gave, not for who you are. But that loneliness isn't punishment, it's transition. It's the space between your old, compliant self and your new, authentic self. It's the emptiness that makes room for new people, people who don't want you to sacrifice yourself, but to honor yourself. People who don't need you to rescue them, but to share with them. Not everyone will applaud your boundaries, but you weren't born to be applauded. You were born to be free. And real freedom begins when you're brave enough to stand by your truth, even if your voice shakes. Want to know if you're living in peace? Listen to your body. If your stomach is tense, your chest is tight, you dread the evenings, or you're constantly irritated. Maybe you're saying yes when you want to say no. Maybe you're staying where you've already left in your heart. Maybe you're giving what you no longer have. Your body never lies. It always knows when you're betraying yourself. And when you start respecting your limits, your body changes too. There's more room for joy, calm, and ease. You don't need distractions or noise anymore because your energy isn't leaking out constantly. It's being protected. Here's the most important thing I want you to take with you today. Your peace is non-negotiable. Don't trade it for fear or guilt or attachment, because when you start sacrificing your peace to maintain relationships, jobs, or situations, you also sacrifice your health, your joy, your creativity. And nothing is worth more than that. Say no. Close the door. Take a step back. Walk away. Even if your voice shakes, even if it hurts, even if they don't understand, they might not get it, but you need it, and that's enough. Peace isn't something you find, it's something you build, you defend it, you practice it, and often you win it by saying, no more. You weren't born to be useful, you were born to be you, and for that, you need courage. The courage to stop carrying what was never yours. The courage to disappoint others if it means staying true to yourself. The courage to choose peace, even if it means letting go of what never truly deserved you. And when you do, everything changes, because you begin to live lighter, clearer, freer, surrounded by people who don't need you to vanish, but to shine. And then, yes, that peace you've been longing for finally arrives.